Welcome back to the double leg. I'm one half of the show, Hey Jai Picks, the other half of the show, the parlay. Joining me in to break down the legendary card of UFC Vegas 100. But before we do that, let's talk about last week. UFC Edmonton, the Canadians had a little bit of a bounce back. I think they went 6-2, so they defended the turf pretty well. How'd the card go for you from a betting perspective?
I went down minus 5.1 units, and there's nothing I could really do about it, man. I mean, I had Armfield on the money line. I thought he won the fight. A lot of people thought he won the fight. I had that fight to end inside the distance. I thought there were multiple opportunities for that. Outside of that, like, I don't know. I had a parlay that was about to cash with Jasmine Jasdavicius fight going over 2.5 rounds, and it misses by 2 seconds. So that's what kind of night it was for me.
Yeah, pretty much. Same for me. I was also on that over 2.5, and that would have cashed the parlay. That was a big 4-unit swing for me right there. I went down 8 units on the night, and I was also on Armfield, so there's another swing. And somehow I managed to bet the over 2.5 in 3 out of the 4 fights that did not go to a decision. So it was that kind of night for me. Pretty rough one. But we bounced back this week at the Apex. My track record at the Apex is actually I didn't expect it to be like this because we had low-level fights, but it's actually better than the fight nights that are at a real location. So yeah, maybe that's something to look forward to. But either way, we got Neil Magny, Carlos Prates in the main event. We got Cody Garbrandt at the Apex. I mean, this man was once the star of the UFC. Now he's getting thrown on the Apex cards, but it's a big one. UFC Vegas 100. Some other matchups that I like on this one, GM3 and the debuting Rainier DeRitter. I like that. We're going to break down every single fight. We'll give you a pick. But if you want the bets, jump in the Humble Fight Picks Premium in the Winnable. The link down in the description below. On the year, we're up over 100 units, well over 100 units as a whole. And it looks to make this one profitable. So got anything before we hop into these breakdowns?
Yeah, not really, man. I mean, this is from my perspective, at least, it's not like the greatest Apex card, but there's some good matchups, some fun fights, some good prospects. And then, of course, we get UFC 309 the week after that, John Jones.
All right, well, we're going to start it off with an absolute banger. Tresean Gore and Antonio Trocoli. Every fight fan in the world has been waiting for this matchup in 2024, and we're getting it. Tresean Gore is at minus 180. Trocoli comes back at plus 140. Trocoli got the piss beat out of him by Shara Magomedov. Tresean Gore been off for a while. He's been dealing with some health issues. He's looking to come back here and get a win against the 6'5" Brazilian. Who you got?
Yeah, I think this is one you actually got to be careful taking Tresean Gore because, Tresean Gore's been off. He's had the injuries. Kind of had an up and down run as of late. He did have the good win over Josh Frim, nearly popped his head off with the guillotine. From a well-rounded fighting perspective, he's not bad. He's got a little power in the hands. He's a decent wrestler. He'll submit you if you leave your neck open. But the Cody Brundage KO is a little concerning. First round, I kind of got flatlined there. Loses the Bryan battle by decision where he was badly outstruck, which not a terrible loss. I just don't think we've really seen enough out of Gore to be confident to lay minus 180 on him against anybody, really. So that's kind of how I feel about him. And for Trocoli, takes a lot of time off, comes back and gets Shara Magomedov, who is a tough debut in the UFC. It's a tough fight coming off of a longer layoff. And it's a completely opposite style than him. Shara's going to go out there and strike with everybody. He wants to make it a kickboxing match. Trocoli showed that, his striking, he can kind of press forward a little bit and land some big right hands. He's very tall. He's long, so he can land those shots. And he had some good moments in the first round. Kind of got tired towards the end, but he's a guy who ultimately wants to fight on the ground. Wasn't able to get it there against Shara. I think he'll have more success against Tresean Gore than he did Shara, if I'm being honest. And kind of the roles are reversed now. Now Tresean's the one coming off of a layoff, coming off of injuries. Trocoli got his feet wet against Shara. Yeah, he got knocked out in the third round, but all things considered, he got in there. He got that debut under his belt. He's ready to go. We might see a brand new fighter. So I don't know if I'm willing to bet Trocoli at plus 140, but I'm definitely not willing to bet Tresean Gore at minus 180.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about this one. I just think it's so low level. I'm trying to find a path for Trocoli that doesn't involve just needing the fight to get to the ground, but I think that's just what it is, you know? I think Trocoli needs to get the fight to the ground. He's gonna be bigger, he's gonna be longer, so maybe he can have more some striking success. I know Tresean Gore is not a Sharmagomedov on the feet, but people forget in that Trocoli Shara fight, like Trocoli should have had a takedown, but Shara grabbed the
Yeah.
cage. That could have changed a lot of things. I do think Trocoli will have some success, at least getting the fight to the ground if he doesn't get sparked early. But I don't know. I look at Tresean Gore. The dude was supposed to get the Bo Nickel treatment, and then he pulled out. So I don't know that this guy is like someone that the UFC really cares to do well or not. I would say not. I mean, he's 4-2. It's like, what are you gonna do with Tresean Gore? I don't know. I mean, like he could be on the fourth fight of his contract, and or maybe third fight. I don't know if we're even counting. Maybe he's on the chopping block. Maybe they just want to get him out of here. So I'm gonna go with Antonio Trocoli, just because I think he's got the more upside on the ground, and then he's big enough to probably get the takedown and do some damage there. So I'm gonna go with Trocoli. Not super high on either guy, but he'll be the pick.
Yeah, here's the thing too. Like last thing I'll say about it. I mean, Tresean Gore's got 6 professional fights. Trocoli's got 16. I mean, there's an experience edge there too for Trocoli. So yeah, it's interesting, man. I don't know. Might have to take a little dog stab here.
Yeah, could be a health advantage too, because Gore just keeps pulling out with injuries. So
Yeah,
could be fragile. All right, moving on. We got Cortavius Romious coming in as the favorite against Gaston Bolanos, the Ilia Topuria lookalike, the Wish Ilia Topuria. All he needs is one of those nice chest tats and a Conor McGregor spine tat, and he'd probably look like him. He's the underdog here. He's 1-1 in the UFC. Only lost to Marcus McGee, who we know is pretty darn good. Got knocked out by him last January. And Cortavius Romious is making his UFC debut off a win on the Contender Series this season to Michael Imperato. He's the favorite. You know us. We're not huge about taking these Contender Series guys as favorites in their debut. Does that change here, or are you going with the favorite?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know yet. Just because, man, there's things that I like and dislike pretty heavily on both sides. Both these guys have 11 professional fights, but the level of competition in those 11 fights are wildly different. You know, Bolanos fought in Bellator. This guy's fought in a higher level of competition. He's already fought in the UFC. And then, Cortavius gets his first shot on the Contender Series, gets knocked out. They bring him back a year later, and he gets a win. So yeah, I think he's still so raw. Like he's very green with his striking, especially. Like, yeah, he's got power. He's very, very athletic, but he's lacking a little technique to where I think Bolanos does have that technique and he has power as well. He's a good kickboxer, comes from that kickboxing Muay Thai background. So I think he's going to hold an edge on the feet. Maybe Bolanos gets sparked with a shot, but if he doesn't, and this thing, plays out on the feet, I think he's going to have a slight advantage. Another thing for Cortavius, man, he could go to the wrestling here. I just don't. He seems to slow down a little bit, at least on the Contender Series. He's looked that way. And Bolanos has been in fights like against Aaron Phillips where he was taken down a couple of times in that fight. He got his back taken. I don't like to see that. But he was able to get back to his feet and still land some big shots on Phillips and have some moments later in the fight. So, yeah, all things considered, minus 185 on a guy in Cortavius who took 2 tries on the Contender Series to get into the UFC. One of those losses was by knockout. Now you're going up against a good kickboxer. I'm pretty interested on the Bolanos side, to be honest, here at plus 144.
Yeah, I don't know what Romious was doing in that fight where he got knocked out, but it was not the right game plan because Cortavius he's not like a great striker. I mean, he's fast and he's got power, but he leaves himself open to getting hit. And if he tries to strike with Bolanos, he's going to look like the underdog. Okay, he needs to get this fight to the ground. That's where he's most dangerous. That's where his best skills are. I think he probably does that. I think if he has any type of fight IQ, any type of brain, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt to have some type of brain and try to take this fight to the ground. Because if he does, Bolanos does not have a good ground game. Like you said, Aaron Phillips got the back. Okay, Aaron Phillips sucks. Cortavius at least has some promise. The dude's an elite athlete. I think he'll continue to get better. I'm going to take Kowalkiewicz for the pick just because I think the grappling edge is there for Bolanos. But if he doesn't, man, I mean, he's probably going to get pieced up. Like Bolanos is a pretty solid Muay Thai striker, nothing crazy, but I think he's good enough to beat a Romious on the feet. So it's a toss-up fight if that's the case, but I think Romious probably does take the grappling path and wins this one. All right, we got Melissa Mullins and Claudia Sygula. Right now, off the bat, I'm going to tell you the odds are flipped. Graphic guy got that one wrong. Melissa Mullins is the favorite at -260. Claudia Sygula comes back as the underdog. Sygula making her UFC debut. She's 6-1. She's 25 years of age. The level of competition she's been facing, pretty bad. Pretty bad, okay? Yeah. She's been fighting in these weird promotions. She's actually fought at catch weights of 150, 139. So she's a pretty big girl, but I think she can make 135 pretty easily when she needs to. She's going to take on Melissa, who looked pretty rough her last time out as a big favorite. She got TKO'd by Nora Cornoli. Knee to the body, and she just crumbled. Big favorite there. She's a big favorite here. Do you think we could see another upset?
Oh, man, it's so hard to get a read on Sygula just because, man, her record, you look at it, you look at the level of competition like you alluded to. Some of these fights are custom rules, and if you watch some of them, it's like they get to the clinch and the ref separates them, and they got to go back to striking. It's hard to tell what she's going to look like in a true mixed martial arts fight against the girl of Melissa Mullins' caliber. Not that she's a great fighter, but she's got a little UFC experience under her belt now. Sygula, though, you can tell, like, in the hands, she's got decent technique with the boxing, holds a little bit of power. Nothing crazy for women's MMA by any means. She's got a couple submissions on her record as well. I just don't know, Melissa Mullins, the loss to Cornoli. Cornoli's a good kickboxer and holds some power as well. I just don't know if Melissa Mullins, getting hit like that to the body, if she's weak to the body, if her cardio is not in check or what it is. Because I do think Claudia, just from watching her, I think it's a girl who could push somewhat of a pace or be able to keep up with Mullins for all 15 minutes. And if she does, I think it's going to play out somewhat close. I've never been blown away with Mullins. If Mullins does go for the grappling, Sygula's shown she has submissions in her arsenal. She looks like a fairly athletic fighter as well. Going to be slightly taller than Mullins here. I don't know, man. I don't have a great read on this fight at all. You can watch all the tape you want on Sygula, but the facts are she's fighting absolute cans. Everybody can look good against a can. I think I'm just going to sit back, watch, see what happens. Probably take Melissa Mullins from the experience perspective and the fact that she's shown that she is decent on the ground and can probably control this girl without getting submitted. I'll take Melissa Mullins for the pick, but it's a weird one, man.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Melissa Mullins as well. I don't really think this Sygula girl is very good. And I think Melissa Mullins is, if she's in her wheelhouse, I think she does all right. Like, if she gets on top, that's her wheelhouse. She was on top against Nora Cornoli in round 1, and then round 2, she gets a takedown stuffed. And then Nora's pretty nasty on the feet. Like, she's got some real nice clinch strikes, and she caught her to the body. It is what it is. I think Melissa Mullins should win this fight. I don't know that Sygula has much success in the UFC. Level of competition is awful. And I really haven't seen anything that I like. I mean, she can get a takedown on the regional scene and she can look good on top, but these girls are 1-0 or 0-1, and I think Melissa Mullins has seen better competition. I think she should be able to win this one. So I'll take Mullins. Moving on, we got Damon Blackshear and Cody Stamann. Damon comes in as the favorite. Stamann comes back as a +200 underdog. Stamann, the vet, going to be undersized in this one. 5'6", 64.5-inch reach compared to 72. Damon coming off the brutal knockout loss to Montel Jackson when the guy had never been finished. First KO loss for Damon Blackshear. First loss by finish ever. Do you think that's going to play a part here? Because you never know how these guys are going to bounce back after a knockout loss, and nonetheless, where it was clear, like the guy got KO'd stiff. So I don't know. I mean, he's a big favorite. That's got something you got to take into consideration at least. But overall, probably should be favored. I don't know if he should be favored this much. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely don't think he should be favored this much because, coming off a knockout like that and having Blackshear's skills in the grappling and the clinch and on the ground, I'm wondering if he's not just going to come in here, not even bother with the striking and try to get it to the ground straight away. But the problem is Cody Stamann's a pretty good wrestler and he's super strong. He's 5'6". He's low to the ground. He's going to be hard to get in and just take down. So yeah, I think if that happens and Cody Stamann can kind of, stuff the takedowns, fight in the clinch a little bit and stay inside, I think Cody Stamann can land shots too. I've always kind of liked Cody Stamann's striking. He's just got such short arms, such a short reach that he's got to really, really close the distance and get inside to land anything meaningful. Another thing too with Stamann is like his cardio is pretty good. And we've seen Devon kind of slow down at times towards the end of fights. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Stamann wins this third round at a pretty high clip against Blackshear. And in the first 2 rounds, with Damon coming off a nasty knockout loss, maybe his chin hasn't fully recovered. It doesn't really feel like it was that long ago. When was it?
July.
July, yeah. So it's not like a right away or anything, but yeah, man, I think Damon should have, with the being 5'10", it's definitely not going to be easy for Stamann to get inside and land shots early. But as the fight goes on, I think Stamann could have success. Definitely don't think Damon's worthy of being minus 265. I'll take a dog shot here, man. I don't know. Something telling me that, the longer this fight goes, the more Stamann's going to have a chance. We've seen weird judging as well. And if Stamann's winning a third round at a high clip, it would not shock me if he wins one of those first 2 rounds too.
Yeah, I think Damon will have a grappling edge just because I think he's probably the better grappler when the fight hits the ground. And like you said, Cody is pretty tough to take down, but once the fight hits the ground, I don't think he's the best grappler. And Damon is pretty nasty. I mean, he's got long limbs. You can throw that body triangle in and take your back and hold you there for a while, flow through positions. On the feet, I think it'll just be hard for Cody to kind of get in on the inside. But the way that Damon fought his last fight, the dude literally just like threw a knee up the middle, a jumping knee, and then got caught. So maybe he does some stupid stuff and gets caught again, or he just doesn't know how to use his length. I mean, he's not the best striker, but he'll throw a decent amount of volume, and he's just going to try to work for those takedowns. So I think Damon probably wins, but I don't think this line should be this wide. And if anything, I'm kind of looking towards like a Cody Stamann plus 3.5 or something like that. I think he could probably win a round. But I don't know that he gets his hand raised because this is the year where the big favorites, gets to a close fight and then the big favorite will take the win. So, yeah, I'm going to take Damon Blackshear for the pick, but I think this is a lot closer than the line would entail.
For sure.
Moving on, we got Charles Radtke coming in as the favorite against Matthew Semelsberger. Just 2 guys that are just gritty. Coming in here, Semelsberger plus 134. Interesting dog to throw on the card. Matthew Semelsberger, 3 losses in a row. Charles Radtke coming off the brutal knockout loss to Carlos Prates, who we'll talk about later. It's an interesting fight. I mean, I thought Charles would be, I didn't think he was going to be 3 years older than Matthew Semelsberger, but then I saw it. He is. I mean, these guys, he's kind of got to go now. But we know the deal with Charles. Solid left hook. Decent striking. Probably going to want to mix in some grappling. Semelsberger always struggled with the takedown defense, but he's tough on the feet. He's got a decent little 1-2. And he'll slug it out at times. Who do you got?
Yeah, actually, I like Charles Radtke here. From what I've seen with Matthew Semelsberger as of late, I'm just not in on him anymore. You remember when he fought Jake Matthews, he was a pretty sizable underdog, and I was all over him there. But since then, like the Jeremiah Wells fight, he fought pretty well, but he just takes so much damage. Uros Medic fought well until he got, TKO'd in the 3rd round, completely gassed. It was at elevation, I'll give him that, but takes a lot of damage. Loses to Preston Parsons. Preston's a good fighter. Was able to mix in some grappling in that fight, land some decent fights on the feet. But Semelsberger just had no urgency really to do anything in that fight. And, Preston Parsons, the guy that goes out there and just doesn't look very good against Oban Elliott. So that loss doesn't age great for Matthew Semelsberger. Radtke, on the other hand, his loss, Carlos Prates, who has a ton of hype behind him right now. Everybody knows that Prates has insane power in the hands. Caught him with the knee to the body, which I think just caught him completely off guard. It was a solid knee. I think anybody kind of crumbles to that. But if you look on Instagram, man, Charles Radtke looks like he's in phenomenal shape. The guy looks super motivated, like he's coming to get that loss back. I do think he has the power in the hands that he can hurt Semelsberger. I think Semelsberger, he gets knocked down so much in the UFC. He gets a lot of knockdowns as well. But one of these times, I think the lights just go out. I think it could be here. And even if it's not, I think Radtke has a motor to where he can mix in the grappling, mix in the takedowns, and fight a full 15 minutes. To whereas I think Semelsberger gets taken down a few times. I think he starts to fade, and he's just kind of hesitant and stagnant on the feet, where Radtke's going to be able to march forward, land big shots, and mix in even more takedowns as the fight goes on. So I actually caught Radtke at minus 155, and this line just keeps going up. I think he's going to close closer to minus 200.
Yeah, I mean, Semelsberger's he's got a crazy knockdown rate. Like, and the reason he
never
won that,
finishes.
yeah, no, the reason he won that Jake Matthews fight is because he knocked him down three times.
Yeah.
Knocked down Jeremiah Wells twice, but he still lost because he got taken down 6 times. I mean, I think if Charles Radtke has any type of brain, he goes to the grappling here. Like, he knows he has a solid left hook and he loves to throw that, but like, don't even mess around. Like, Matthew Semelsberger can crack you. You can put your lights out. And Charles Radtke been knocked out a couple times. So Charles Radtke, you better be grappling. If I don't see you grappling on Saturday night, we're going to have a talk. Charles Radtke's the pick because Matthew Semelsberger's takedown defense is terrible. And when he does get taken down, he struggles to get back up. Pretty tough to finish, though, on the ground with the submission, but he'll lay there. I think he's just going to give up a lot of minutes. I think Radtke will probably win a lot of the minutes, so I'll take Radtke. Moving on, we got Mansour Abdul Malik. Do not be fooled by the image on your screen. This dude does not have man tits. Okay, this is an absolute specimen. It's funny when you get these contender series picks because they take like 2 or 3 months in advance and they're like out of shape. And then you see them in the cage and they're jacked up. Mansour Abdul Malik is a specimen of a human being. 80-inch reach, and at 185, the dude is every bit of it. I mean, he's probably every bit of 210. Dusko Todorovic coming in as the underdog. I thought Dusko was out of the UFC. I mean,
I did too.
Been off for a while. He's been off since March of 2023. He got injured in that fight. I guess maybe he's got a fight or two left on his contract, but this one looks pretty clear what the UFC is trying to do. Get their new signee, Mansour Abdul Malik, a win in his debut and get Dusko Todorovic off his contract and out of the UFC. So I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to take a Mansour Abdul Malik. The line is wide. Don't love the new guys at Big Chalk, but I do think he probably wins. So what do you got?
Yeah, first, like the contender series pictures too. Like, why is the lighting so messed up on it?
It's so different.
The lighting's so different and so bad. But yeah, man, I think Dusko, if he can keep fights on the feet, he's got decent boxing. He just doesn't have much of a chin. He's been knocked out 3 times in his 16 fights. Out of his 4 losses, 3 of those are knockout. He's coming off a bad knee injury too. And now you're coming up against the guy who hits really hard, who you're probably not going to be able to just get your boxing going, because if you do, he's going to duck under and probably slam you on your head and work on the ground. And Dusko Todorovic off of his back is pretty bad. So yeah, I don't really think Mansour Abdul Malik's going to have much of a problem in this fight. I don't think Dusko's going to come out here and spark him or anything. And the longer the fight goes on, I just think Dusko's going to be eating big shots on the feet as well. And at some point, he's going to end up on his back, where Mansour should be able to go to work and either finish the fight or just completely maul him. So, yeah, Abdul Malik's the pick. This is one guy making his debut at Chalk that I think should have success. Like you said, the UFC's setting him up here. They want him to win.
Yeah, I could see a ground and pound finish from Abdul Malik, because I remember betting on Todorovic against Jordan Wright, and Jordan Wright took him down and put him through the ringer in round 1. And then Jordan Wright just fell off a cliff. with his cardio, and then Todorovic took over and won. But I was sweating that one because I was like, oh my God, he's about to get finished on the ground. I think Abdul Malik could probably do that here. He's got nasty ground and pound when he gets on top, that 80-inch reach. He uses it.
I'm gonna call arm triangle on the ground because he's gonna get to mount if he gets him down. And this dude has such a squeeze and such power that if he just locks it in, I mean, Dusko's gonna be tapping for his life.
Does he have any subs yet or no? Abdul Malik.
6 wins. He's got one submission, and it came by guillotine.
Interesting. I'm sure the sub numbers could be a lot better than the KO number.
Oh, yeah.
Let's move on. We got Nicholas Dalby back in action, taking on Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. This one is basically lined at a pick'em. Couple of old dudes. This is a rematch in the making all the way back in 2015. May of 2015, these dudes squared off. And Nicholas Dalby got the dub by split decision. So they pretty much lined this one at correctly. Split decision, I'd say, is about 50-50. And here we are. What, 9 years later? 9.5 years later? Dalby's 39, Zaleski 37. Dalby coming off the loss to Fakhretdinov. Zaleski coming off the loss to Randy Brown. So both guys looking to bounce back. Who you got?
Yeah, this one, I think it will be somewhat of a close fight through the first couple of rounds for sure. Oh, man, Dalby, though, like that last loss to Fakhretdinov, I thought Dalby won the fight. I think a lot of people thought he won the fight. But if he would have won that, man, that's a 5-fight win streak at almost 40 years old. This guy has gotten better with age.
You know why he lost, right? It was in Saudi Arabia.
Oh,
bro.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw the next fight with Fakhretdinov lose the entire fight. He gets the decision.
Yep. I mean, this guy, before that even, was able to finish Gabriel Bonfim. Bonfim was 15-0 at the time. Coming into that fight, had a ton of hype and was like, what, minus 400 over Dalby? And Dalby was able to do what he does, man. Survive early, put a pace on you that you can't handle, and then, good things happen. But, against Zaleski, I don't think he's going to have to weather an early storm. I don't think Zaleski's going to come out guns blazing. I think he's just going to come out. I think it's going to be a pretty even fight. But, when Zaleski does get in some of these tougher fights, he does slow down a little bit. He's always dangerous. He's an absolute dog. Like, he'll fight through it. But a lot of the time when he's slowing down, it's against other guys that slow down as well, like a Fakhretdinov. Who did he fight? In the Abubakar fight, a split decision, he had, he kind of had to dog that one out as well. Whereas if it gets into that situation in the third round with a guy like Dalby, I just think Dalby's cardio is going to be much better. He's got way more of a motor. I think he's going to throw more volume. He might have to eat some big shots. In the grappling department too, I don't think Zaleski's going to be able to get into a position where he's going to be able to control the fight or look for submissions. Dalby's strong. He's decent with his wrestling too. He's hard to take down. And while it's on the feet, like I don't think either guy's going to knock out the other. I just think Dalby's probably going to have the better moments. He's going to be the one pushing him up against the cage, landing better combinations to Zaleski's, 1 and 2 shots at a time. So I got to bet on cardio here, man. I like Nicholas Dalby. Should be on a 5-fight win streak. 39 years old. He's one of those guys that just really never looked better.
Yeah, the only thing that scares me is at times he can get cracked. But I mean, he usually battles through it. And the same could be said for Zaleski. I mean, he's been knocked down a good amount of times in his UFC career, but sometimes he can battle through it. Got knocked down by Fakhretdinov and came back. I bet on Zaleski. I've been a Fakhretdinov fader for a while. I bet on Zaleski against Fakhretdinov, and he was like plus 300. And then they went to the draw. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to get him this time. Bet on Dalby against Fakhretdinov, and he was like plus 250, plus 280, something like that. And then they didn't really, I don't think he really robbed him, but definitely could have went to Dalby in that scenario if it wasn't in Saudi. So, I believe in both guys, but I do think Dalby's pace and pressure is just going to be a little bit too much. I mean, ever since Zaleski popped for those performance-enhancing drugs against Benoit, he hasn't really looked the same, man. Like the split decision to Abubakar was like a really grinded out type of fight. And then he looked pretty bad against Fakradinov early, and then just took over after Fakradinov gassed. And Dalby's not going to gas, like I think Dalby's probably going to win round 3 at a very high clip. And then round 2 and round 1, I think he could probably take as well. So give me Nicholas Dalby for the pick. All right, now we got some women's strawweight. Luana Pinheiro coming in as the underdog against Jillian Robertson, sitting at -320. Jillian coming off a win over Michelle Waterson. Very, very dominant. Got on top and just put her through the ringer. She is 4-1 in her last 5. And every win that she's had has looked very, very dominant. So she's kind of expected to have another dominant win here against Luana Pinheiro, who is really falling off a cliff. I mean, she was looked at as pretty decent, a pretty decent little prospect. And then she gets TKO'd in round 3 against Hebos after piecing her up for 2 rounds and then gets submitted by Angela Hill. Not a good look. Is there any hope left for Luana Pinheiro?
Oh man. Oh, she keeps this fight on the feet, I think she's gonna have success. Girls like Luana who have decent technical striking are gonna land, and they're gonna score points on Jillian. I mean, we saw it when Jillian fought Tabitha Ricci. She was just kind of outstruck. She didn't have enough volume to kind of keep up with that pace. But I think Luana, at some point she's going to get taken down here. And if Angela Hill's submitting you with the guillotine, I think if Jillian just gets her hands around the neck, she's going to be able to work in some kind of submission. Jillian's just getting better with time too. Like, Jillian's a girl who came into the UFC at a super, super young age. And you look at all the fights that she's had, you would think she's like 36, 37. But what is she, 28, 29? 29? Yeah, man. So she's not even 30 years old. I think that's good that she's had all this high level experience in the UFC. I mean, being less than 30 years old with that many fights, I think she's only going to get better from here. She's just now getting into her prime. It's a kind of a contrast in styles. Like Luana, I really don't think she's going to be able to stop the grappling attack. On the ground, if Jillian gets him out, I was telling you before this, man, the TKO is live. You got 12-6 elbows now coming straight down. She gets into that dominant position. She likes to throw though, like elbows. She likes to land a little ground and pound that gets you uncomfortable to make you give up your neck. But if she's landing them badly enough, I think Luana is a girl who's got some quit in her. We've seen it multiple times. We saw her get submitted by Ange after getting a pace put on her. We saw her in the 3rd round against Hebos. So yeah, I think this is Jillian inside the distance all day, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Jillian probably gets her down fairly early on in the fight and does what she does. I mean, when she's on top of girls, she's probably one of the better women's fighters. I mean, she's nasty elbows. She could take your back. She could throw in an arm triangle, and she's going to keep the top position. That's the real thing, is she's going to keep position and just put you through the ringer. So I'm going to go with Jillian Robertson for this one. Like you said, I think it's probably inside the distance. I mean, a lot of her wins are inside the distance, and the fact that Pinheiro has been finished her last 2 fights is not a good look, but maybe she just goes in there and tries to survive. She could be on the chopping block because her boy, Mateusz Nicolau, just got dropped. So yeah, maybe she's on the chopping block too. So give me Jillian. Moving on. I think this is my favorite fight on the card.
Mm-hmm.
GM3 back in action. Look at that mustache. That's some sex appeal right there. GM3 coming in as the underdog once again against Rainier de Ritter, making his UFC debut -290. Rainier de Ritter, the one champion. Only 2 losses are to the man named Anatoly Malakin, who's the beast over in 1. If you don't know him, the dude looks like he's sauced up. He's probably sauced up, and he beats everybody. So those are his only 2 losses. He's going to have to make a statement coming in here, getting a win against GM3 because he's 34. He doesn't have time to waste, and he's favored to do so. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what he looks like coming into the UFC. Those 2 losses in 1 are also up a weight class at 205. He had to fight up, go up for that belt. But it's kind of a good clash of styles here. GM3, everybody knows all the submissions he's got on his record. It's like, how do you not bet this guy? It seems like every time he's in there, In the UFC, he's cashing a massive round 2 or round 3 submission ticket. But now he's up against the guy who's going to have very, very good grappling in a submission game as well. I don't know. Like, I could see this fight, honestly, just playing out on the feet. Both guys not being able to get to the position they want on the ground, and it gets back up, and then it's kind of a striking battle, which, this is one time where GM3 is not really up against it. Usually he's in there with a guy who's a way better striker than him, and he's got to get it to the ground or have a guy make a mistake and end up on top. I think it's a kind of an even striking match, if I'm being honest. De Ridder, he's not the youngest guy in the world by any means. He's not like a guy that's been developing his striking for the last couple of years, 28, 29 years old. And now he's putting it together. This guy's 34. He's just 2 years younger than GM3. I think his striking is where it's at. It's not really going to get much better, much worse. I don't think it's amazing whatsoever. I could see GM3 hurting him on the feet, honestly. GM3 throws a good kick to the body. He's got a little power in his hands as well. And he's landed big shots against guys like Bruno Silva, who, that win doesn't age great now or anything, but against strikers, this guy can find the chin. So I think this plays out very close on the feet. If it does go to the ground, I'd say De Ridder probably has a strength advantage, but grappling advantage, I'm not so sure. Plus 215 on GM3. This dude is a dog casher. So I don't know. It's tough to make a pick because I don't know what De Ridder is going to look like at this level. I'll take GM3.
Yeah, I think this De Ridder guy is pretty damn good. But I don't know if his cardio is that good. I don't think his stand-up is really that good. And then it really just comes down to, is his grappling that good? So I would say it's pretty good, but can he do it for 3 rounds? Because GM3 loves to, lose the first 2 and then just come back in the third. So I think GM3 could maybe just try to wear him down. And it's not like GM3 is some cardio monster, but he will outlast a lot of guys. And if he could do that here against a guy that is coming down a weight class to 185, maybe the cardio isn't as good as it would be at 205. Maybe there's the path for GM3. I am going to side with GM3. That's my dog right there. I love me some GM3. And as you said, he's always the underdog. So, I mean, he's cashed before. I'm just going to side with him here because I think he can hang with De Ridder on the ground. The only worry for me would be if De Ridder gets on top and is just able to land a lot of ground and pound, because GM3 is not the best off his back. He likes to be in a top position, or at least in the driver's seat in the grappling exchanges, but he's not terrible off his back. I mean, he could hit some sweeps. He could throw up some triangles, but I don't think he's going to catch anything on De Ridder off his back, but I think he's just going to have to wear him out and try to take over later. So I'll take GM3 for the pick. Moving on, we got Ricky Turcios and Bernardo Sopaj. Turcios, plus 220, Sopaj minus 258 after losing his UFC debut on short notice to Vinicius Oliveira. He was up 2 rounds, completely gassed out, and got flying kneed with seconds left on the clock. What could have been a beautiful UFC debut just ended in the worst way for Sopaj. Turcios coming off the submission loss to Raul Rosas Jr. Both men trying to bounce back here. Who you got?
Yeah, I was on Sopaj against Vinicius, and it was looking really good. But he death gassed, dude. It was just out of nowhere. The one thing with Ricky, though, that there's a couple reasons I'm not as concerned about that happening here as I was in the first one. Ricky's not a guy who's going to go out there and crack you with massive shots on the feet or rip the body enough times to really gas you out. I think Sopaj will have a lot of success in the first 2 rounds. And the other thing is he's not on short notice here against the killer in Oliveira. So maybe that, and it's not his UFC debut, point number 3. I mean, he came in short notice against Vinicius Oliveira. Knowing what we do now against Oliveira, it's actually pretty damn good what he was able to do in the first 2 rounds. Dominate a guy like that. I mean, it showed me the guy's skills are there. He's just got to get that cardio in check. I'm sure he learned a lot from that loss as well. So, bouncing back here, I think we get a better gas tank skill-wise. Like I said, he's got it together. I don't think Ricky just doesn't really possess enough danger here to make me think he's going to steal this fight and finish the show or anything like Oliveira did. So if he does get to the 3rd round and Sopaj is pretty gassed and stuff, I just don't think Ricky's got it in him to go out there and close it out. So Yeah, I'm taking Bernardo here. I think he does win the first 2 rounds at a pretty high clip. He's good, man. If he gets the cardio in check, he's really, really good.
Yeah, I don't think Ricky Turcios is good at all. I mean, the guy will make you think he's like some killer because he does a bunch of weird stuff, but I don't think he's very good. He likes to push a pace, like you said, not super dangerous, and his takedown defense is awful. So I think Bernardo Sopaj probably takes him down early, puts him through the ringer. We saw in his last fight he has a really solid ground game, especially when he's in top position, can flat you out, land a bunch of shots, and I think he probably does that. So I think if Bernardo's gas tank can hold up, I think he probably wins this one fairly easily, just getting the takedowns and rinse and repeat. But Ricky Turcio is not a terrible grappler. Maybe he could find some spots to give Sopaj some troubles. I mean, he thing with Ricky, he just like never stops moving. Like he's very squirmy and he throws like these little rabbit punches, like little
Clap in your face.
Yeah, like that'll when you're trying to take him down. So it's just kind of annoying. He's just kind of annoying in there. So if he can annoy Sopaj, maybe he could take over. But I think Sopaj is probably just the better fighter. So I'll take him for the pick. All right, now we got some women's strawweight again. We got Karolina Kowalkiewicz coming in as the plus 300 underdog, taking on Denise Gomes at minus 430. 15 years age gap here. 24 years for Denise Gomes. She's coming off a big underdog win against Eduarda Mora. And Kowalkiewicz coming off the loss to Yasmin Lucindo. Broke her 4-fight winning streak. So she went from Yasmin Lucindo, Butch Brazilian, to Denise Gomes, Butch Brazilian. It's a tough little stretch there for Karolina.
Yeah.
She's the underdog here. Do you think she could pull it off?
Man, I looked for every way to get to her here, but there's a couple reasons I don't think she gets it done. Before I get into that, though, dude, if you look, I don't know how she's still in the UFC after going on a 5-fight losing streak, albeit it was the good competition, but that was capped off by a loss to Jessica Penne by a round 1 armbar. Like, after losing 4 fights and then losing like that to Jessica, I'm surprised they didn't cut her. And then she rattled off 4 wins in a row. Felice Herrig, Silvana Gomez Juarez, Vanessa Demopoulos, and Diana Belbita. But the thing is, I mean, she's 39 years old now. The volume, she doesn't do anything crazy with the striking anymore. She doesn't really have power. I think she's got like 1 TKO out of her 16 wins. The striking's clean. It's well put together. She has a lot of experience. But up against Denise Gomes, I mean, Gomes is going to have the speed advantage. She's going to have the power in her hands. I mean, Gomes is a girl, when she connects, man, she can knock girls out. We saw it against Bruna Brasil. We saw it against Yasmin Jauregui, who might be chinny. And then, against Angela Hill, she kind of just got the pace put on her. I was trying to look for comparisons between Angela Hill and Karolina with the striking and the pace. I just at 39 years old for Karolina, I just don't think she's going to be able to go out there and outland her significantly over the course of 3 rounds. I think Denise Gomes is going to have the big moments. I think she will hit her pretty frequently here. So, yeah, I think Gomes wins the fight. Not a fan of minus 430 at women's MMA, but younger fighter, more power, up and coming. The UFC would love to see her win because, Brazilian neck tat, looks scary, gets knockouts for a women's MMA. Like, what more is there to love? So I'm going to take her for the pick, not betting on her. Keep her out of your parlays. You never know. But I think overall she should get it done.
You think she could knock her out?
I don't know, man. Karolina's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough to call. I mean, she's got the power to knock anybody out, I think. I just think how many times has Karolina been knocked out? Once to Andrade. That's some similarities between Gomes and Andrade.
Yeah. I did some data. I pulled some data, and with the new gloves, there hasn't been a women's strawweight KO yet.
Really?
So new gloves, no women's strawweight KOs. I don't think we get it. I don't think she KOs Karolina unless Karolina just completely takes the worst right hand. If Denise like really just unloads on something, I don't really see it happen. I think Denise, raw talent. She goes into the UFC. She's just super raw. She's getting taken down by Loma Luke Boonmay. And then she picks up a couple knockout wins. That's great. And then she kind of gets humbled by Angela Hill getting taken down a bunch again and just kind of got out cardioed. And then in her last fight, she got taken down, but she was able to work out of it a good amount of time. She stuffed 21 takedowns too. So I think she's still improving. I think she should be able to win this fight. I think she'll land the better shots. You know, I think she's actually pretty similar to Yasmin Lucindo, just without the grappling. So I think she's kind of a worse version of Yasmin Lucindo, but I do think she probably wins this fight. The line is pretty wide, but yeah, I'm still going to take her for the pick. Probably take her by decision, low key, but yeah, she's the pick. All right, co-main event. Cody Garbrandt taking on Miles Johns. Miles Johns comes as the favorite. Cody Garbrandt, the underdog. Cody, 3 years older. He's got a lot of miles on that chin. And you don't see it in this picture, but he's got a nice little face tat now. So face tat Cody might be a different fighter. Think he could pull off the underdog cash here against the surging Miles Johns, who technically is on a 4-fight win streak?
It's definitely like a step up in competition in theory. But I mean, Cody just hasn't been fighting to that level, like against anybody really. In his last fight, he gets taken down by Deiveson Figueiredo one time in the second round and gets submitted. You know, he beats Brian Kelleher, but if he would have went out of the first round with Kelleher, I'd have been super concerned. I mean, Kelleher is like round one getting finished every fight until he's, you know, done. Yeah. Even against Trevin Jones, like this is a fight where Cody, skill for skill, should have been much better and faster. He landed 26 significant strikes over the course of 3 rounds, and he mixed in a couple takedowns. But you could tell, man, he's just a little timid after getting knocked out so many times. But the guys he's getting knocked out by, Kai Kara-France, understandable. The dude hits like a truck for 125. Pedro Munhoz, a little concerning. And then the TJ Dillashaw's, it's TJ. Against Miles Johns, like I don't really necessarily think he's going to have to worry about, you know, the strikes coming his way, because I don't think Miles Johns is even going to really entertain it much. Miles Johns is a guy who likes to throw that big overhand right. He's going to shoot a takedown off of that. He's going to look to put you against the cage. He's going to look to wrestle you. That's how Miles John wins this fight. Like if this fight stays at range, I think Cody will have the cleaner boxing, should be able to land. And I don't think Miles John's striking is clean enough to catch Cody like that. I think Cody's movement will still be there. But, you know, Cody, when he gets put on his back, he's not really the best at working back to his feet. It's not like Miles Johns is a big submission guy by any means, but he is strong. He's very physical, good wrestling. Cody's got a wrestling background. He's good as well, so maybe he can stuff the takedowns and it'll get interesting on the feet. That's the one thing that, I mean, if Cody can do that, like, there's no reason he can't win this fight, to be honest. It's just stuff in the takedowns at this point in his career. I think Johns is going to be stronger than him. Cody should have good footwork and speed, though, so that could give Johns some troubles here. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say Cody Garbrandt gets it done. I think everybody's going to be fading him just based off of his chin, but you look at the guys who get knocked out by, it's great striking technique and a lot of power for these weight classes. Miles Johns striking, I'm not saying it's bad, but it lacks a little technique. He's not the fastest guy in the world. And, you know, he's relatively low volume and he's just looking to wrestle. So, yeah, give me Cody, man.
The thing with Miles Johns, if you ever watch a Miles Johns fight, you'll notice that his opponents just do not want to throw anything. Like, they just don't want to throw anything at him. And I'm like, it's kind of mind-boggling because you watch Miles Johns striking and you're just like, yeah, this isn't really, it's not very technical. It doesn't really look like he's going to land a bunch, but people just get gun-shy in there. Like, I think Miles Johns is just like a brick house. And I think he does hit pretty damn hard. So it makes fighters timid. And then Johns has an ability to run you through the ringer of cage control, knees to the thigh, you know, trying to get you down. His takedown accuracy is awful, but he doesn't really land a ton of takedowns, but he imposes his will just by holding you up against the cage. So he wins a good amount of minutes that way. And I don't know that Cody is going to win a ton of minutes, but he could win the moments definitely just by having the faster hands, sweeping some leg kicks, stuffing takedowns, circling out. If he can do that, then he's got a chance to win here. But I don't know. I'm not going to get excited about Cody Garbrandt beating Trevin Jones and Brian Kelleher. And honestly, he didn't look good in the Trevin Jones fight. So I'm going to take Miles Johns for the pick. I think the trajectory is just more on the John side. And I think he does have the tools to beat a Cody Garbrandt, who you blow on his chin, he might go down. So I'll take Miles Johns.
Yeah, I think Cody's got to actually get really aggressive here. He's got to be the one marching forward. Like, if he can get Miles Johns to back up, I don't think Johns has the counter punching to really keep up with him. And it's going to be hard to shoot takedowns off of his back foot. But the moment Cody does get just hit one time, even if it doesn't hurt him or just slightly rocks him, I think Cody starts taking steps back, and that's what I'm concerned with. Don't think I'll get to betting Cody, but skill for skill, man, I think he could compete if he just can stay in his face and back him up.
Agreed. Takes us to the main event. Neil Magny, who better to headline an Apex 100 card than the journeyman himself, Neil Magny. Plus 430 on Neil, minus 670 on Carlos Prates, taking on a guy who has hit a lot of fraud checks in his career. And he's also been put through the ringer against the prospects. So he can get finished by these guys like a Michael Morales or a Shavkat Rachmanov, or just beaten up by Ian Gary. Or he could do the Mike Malott treatment. Which one do you think it's going to be?
Underdog of the year. No, I'm just kidding. But, the one thing that concerns me with Magny is, one, he's getting a little bit older. He's 37. He's taken some shots. He's always been really durable. But, in the last fight against Morales, he took a nasty shot and it rocked him. It hurt him. That was the end of the fight. If he starts getting hit by Carlos, I think it could be a similar situation. Carlos just has ungodly power. It's more powerful than a lot of people that Magny's been fighting. More powerful than Ian Gary, Malott, Morales. The thing that worries me, though, is like Carlos Prates can be a slow starter. We saw Trevin Giles, who, just went up against Mike Malott and didn't even put up a fight. He was able to have a lot of success in round one. Now, if Magny can just put him up against the cage and try to wear him down just a little bit, I mean, that's his path to victory. And he's got to do it for a couple of rounds. He's got to get to that third round for him to have a chance, because this is a 5-round fight. We've never really seen Carlos Prates at this level outside of the first few rounds. Carlos Prates also sucking down cigarettes, all that fun stuff too. So you never know what the cardio is like. But at the end of the day, I do think there's going to be moments when Carlos can definitely catch him early. But he's got to stay off the fence. And when Magny does put him against the fence, I'm sure he's been working on it, but he's got to circle out, and he can't let Magny just control him, because Magny is very good at doing that. We saw it against Phil Rowe. Like, that was a close fight because Magny just landed elbows in the clinch, got back to getting his hands locked, held him up against the cage, and that was it. So, yeah, I think Carlos Prates, the age difference, he's right in the middle of his prime. Magny's been in some wars. He's 37. I think Prates should get it done. But if it gets to that third round, it's going to get questionable.
Yeah, we know what Magny's going to try to do here. He's going to try to hold him up against the cage, wear him out, and take over later. But I don't really see it happening. I mean, guys have tried that, and Prates just gets himself off the cage and then pieces him apart. And the thing with Neil is he can't take leg kicks, and Carlos Prates, he's got freaking Muay Thai tatted across his chest. So got some leg kicks in him. And, I think he probably beats those legs up and then goes upstairs and finds a TKO. So Magny is pretty tough to TKO because he's 6'3", and he can usually keep his range pretty well. And once he's hurt, he usually tries to clinch up. But I think Carlos Prates probably gets this one done, round 1 or 2. And the line would express those words. So I think he lives up to the hype. Fighting Nerd's not going to fade those guys. Give me Prates. Those are the picks. UFC Vegas 100. Appreciate you for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Once again, if you want our bets, jump in the Humble Fight Picks Premium membership. Join the Winnable. Link down in the description below. We might have a nice little promotional offer for you later in the week. You could stay up to date with everything there at Home of Picks on IG, at HeyJaiPicks on the medias. For me, where can they find you?
All social medias at the Parlay MMA.
All right, till next week when we break down UFC 309 card, the double leg. Signing out.